The leader of the Solomon Islands has denied reports China plans to build a military base in the country. Addressing Parliament, Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare pushed back against claims the Solomon Islands was facing any pressure over the matter. Now, the Solomon Islands lie northeast of Australia. Talk of a potential Chinese naval base surfaced after the draft of a new security deal with China became public. And this is the clarification Sogavare issued in Parliament.
The security treaty, Mr. Speaker, is pursued at the request of Solomon Islands government. We are not pressured. We are not pressured in any way by our new friends. And there is no intention whatsoever, Mr. Speaker, to ask China to build a military base in Solomon Islands. Goodness. We're insulted. We're insulted by such unfounded stories.
The stories emerging mainly out of Australia and New Zealand, which have reacted with concern over a potential Chinese military presence in the region. Now, it's worth mentioning here that Australia and the Solomons already have a security pact between them from 2017. So why are Canberra and Wellington so concerned with a new deal between China and the Solomons? I asked Rory Metcalf from the Australian National University.
Well, for a long time now, there has been anxiety about the prospect of China establishing a military base in the South Pacific, in the territory of small island states between Australia, New Zealand, the United States, and all the other powers of this region. This was portrayed as something of an overblown fear, a kind of crying wolf, if you like. Our security agencies for about 4 or 5 years now have been warning that something like this would happen. And of course, now it appears that with this security agreement between the Solomon Islands government and China, the door is open for a Chinese military presence in the Solomon Islands. Not immediately a fully fledged base, but the option to lodge military and police forces there to protect Chinese interests and perhaps to do other things as well.
Now, Solomon Islands Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare said as a sovereign nation, the islands could determine whom it wanted to partner for its security interests with. I mean, that's like a reasonable argument, isn't it?
Look, that's absolutely right. I mean, every country has the sovereign ability to choose whether it wants to have a foreign military power putting forces on its soil. The concern that countries like Australia and New Zealand have here is that this is firstly very contentious within the Solomon Islands. It's divided between the government and the opposition, which strongly opposes the China military connection. And also there's a big question mark over the origin of this deal. There have been allegations in the past of Chinese influence campaigns, perhaps even bribery to strengthen China's position in the Solomon Islands. It was only a few years ago that the Solomons did basically a big switch from recognition of Taiwan to recognition of the People's Republic of China. And the accusation there was that a lot of money changed hands in that process. So yes, there's a sovereign right, there's a sovereign choice, but the question that is being asked is this in the best interests of small island states whose security concerns are much more closely much more closely connected to issues of development, the environment, health, fisheries, human security, rather than having a foreign military power on their soil.
You talked about this switch of the diplomatic recognition from Taiwan to China, and then now you have the security deal coming along. What is behind this shift to China that we are seeing?
There's a much bigger dynamic at work here. In my view, and I think the view of many analysts, China is on a kind of quasi-colonial push to extend its power and influence across this maritime region. That's been the subject of my own book. The so-called Belt and Road, the Maritime Silk Road, the extension of influence through investment and infrastructure and technology. On the one hand, that may be a good thing for local development if there are infrastructure needs. But on the other hand, it's quite clear that the Chinese state is using these methods to extend its influence over a wide range of small countries so that in turn, it can in time project security and military power. It really is a kind of empire by stealth. And the concern for a country like Australia is that, if you like, we are being outflanked in our own neighbourhood, in our own region. A Chinese military force in the Solomon Islands would essentially block the way between Australia and its ally, the United States.
Rory Metcalf, we'll leave it there for the time being, but thank you so much for joining us today.